What is up, YouTube people? It's your boy Patty McNinja, and it's early February 2025, and we just got our first major video game release of the year. The game that I'm referring to, of course, is Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. And since I'm making this video, of course, I've played the game and I want to talk about it. So without further ado, let's rock. The long-awaited sequel was finally released on February 4th, 2025. It was developed by the same studio that, of course, developed the original game, Warhorse Studios, and it was published by Deep Silver. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 was released on PS5, PC, and Xbox Series X and S. I played it for roughly 25 hours on my Xbox Series S. And of course, if you've played the first game, you know, well, that's not enough time to finish this game. And you're exactly right. This is a sandbox action RPG. There are a lot of things to explore and a lot of systems to manage. So obviously, if you've seen the thumbnail or you've played the original game, you know that 25 hours is not enough. So this video will not be my full review. It'll just be kind of my first impressions, because hopefully I'm nowhere close to finishing this game. I did play the original game and I was moderately excited for this sequel. This channel is not my first attempt at a YouTube channel. I did a Let's Play channel years ago, and I actually did a series of videos for the original Kingdom Come Deliverance game. And while I was impressed with the ambition of that game, it's a fairly historically accurate, immersive medieval sim made by a very small studio. And I certainly appreciated that, but I also remember hating the save system, and I could not for the life of me get used to the combat system. Plus the bugs. Man, there was a lot of bugs. I played the original game at launch, and I remember that game was a buggy mess at launch. And I eventually just got fed up after about 20 hours into the game, and unfortunately never circled back to it, which is a shame, because much like games like the Master Chief Collection, No Man's Sky, or even Cyberpunk 2077, those games had disastrous launches, but the studios, like Warhorse did with the original game, stuck with those games and eventually just kept plugging away. And from what I understand, the first Kingdom Come Deliverance game is a million times better now than it was at launch, and it's kind of built up this cult following, kind of a die-hard fan base, if you will. And to be completely honest with you, that's really the only reason I gave this sequel a second chance. I paid full price for the first game, played it at launch, and I never even beat it. So I didn't want to make that same mistake again. However, kind of morphing into my actual review of this game, I'm really glad that I did. I'm just gonna be blunt to start off this video. This game fucking rules. It certainly won't be everyone's cup of tea. I'll probably say that a couple of times throughout this video. Like I said, there's a lot of systems to manage. This is an immersive action RPG where you have to manage Henry's hunger, you have to sleep, and so many more. Literally, if you get too dirty in this game, people will treat you like a peasant. So you always have to kind of wash yourself and all that stuff. And it's a bit of a struggle early on, especially with money. Like in the real world, everything costs money. In this video game world, and it's a huge struggle early on to make money. You literally have none to start off with, so just getting started in this game is a struggle. For anyone interested, I did put out a video, a rare tutorial video for this channel of my few of my favorite early game ways to make quick money in this game a few days ago. So if you haven't already and you're interested, definitely check that video out. So the first few hours of this game is definitely going to be a struggle, and I think my fellow adult gamers out there who have a very limited amount of time to play video games may want a chiller gaming experience. However, despite all of that, I am loving this game so far. It's definitely unlocked that obsessive part of my gamer brain that just wants to keep trying everything in this game. It's definitely one of those games where I might sit down only planning on playing for like an hour or two, and then I blink and 4 or 5 hours are gone, just because I constantly just want to do the next thing. And based on my limited time with the first game several years ago at launch, this game, the sequel, feels like a huge step up. It feels like it did exactly what I want from a sequel, even though the original game wasn't my favorite. At its core, I knew that original game at least had potential. I just didn't have the patience to wait for it to get there. The sequel has all of the things I enjoyed about the first game, with many, many improvements wrapped up in this more refined package. There are still some weird bugs, minor things that you're kind of used to seeing in open world RPGs, like NPCs kind of doing goofy stuff. So it's not anything out of the ordinary. It's nowhere close to stuff I remember seeing from the first game kind of being broken at launch. But let's go ahead and dive into some specifics, and I will start with the story. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 follows Henry, of course, the protagonist from the first game, who is now the escort of nobleman Hans Capon, the heir of Rattay. However, the Kingdom of Bohemia is on the cusp of civil war, so when a party consisting of Henry and Hans, among others, set out to deliver a message, they are attacked and the two H's barely make it out alive. And I'm not going to talk too much more about the story because honestly, in my 25-ish hours, I haven't done much of the main stuff so far. I've been really obsessed with exploring and doing a lot of the side quests that I've kind of been slow playing the main story. And I guess that should be not red flag, but I guess green flag for you to know that I am really liking this game, that when I'm careful about when I do main quest stuff, because I don't want to miss any side stuff, you know, I'm really enjoying the game. Normally I just kind of do side stuff until I get bored and then I do the main stuff. I haven't gotten bored yet. A lot of that has to do with the depth of the stuff that you can actually do in this game that I will touch on here in a little bit, but also just the writing of the side quests have been great. There's a side mission where Henry had to set aside his issues with the humans for the moment and kind of spend a night drinking with them and kind of bonding with them, which felt really difficult given the events of the first game, which I do want to mention. This game does a pretty good job of kind of bringing you up to speed of the major events in the intro to this game. The first like hour or so, they do a decent job of having like small flashbacks to the major events of the first game. But if you've not played the first game, and I again didn't finish the first game, I would suggest you doing what I did, which was watching a good like recap video of the story of the first game, because it does matter in this game. But back to some of the side stuff. There is another side quest where Henry has to help a family mend some deep wounds that I related to more than I thought I was going to in a video game like this. It's not all serious stuff though. There is some levity in some of the side quests. There was a side mission where I fucked around with some sheep, which I probably should have worded that better. Just to be clear, I got hired to pull a prank on a neighboring village where I led their sheep through their laundry to kind of dirty that laundry up, and then I led them out to the woods so they would get lost in the woods. There was no bestiality. I want to make that very, very clear. And it certainly doesn't hurt that the voice performers kill it, especially, of course, Tom McKay, who plays Henry. Luke Dahl does a great job as Hans as well. Hans is kind of this lovable asshole, and Luke Dahl plays it very, very well. Side note, he does have a YouTube channel that I've been checking out recently that has provided a lot of insight in his character and the audition part of getting this job and all that stuff, which I thought was really interesting. So if you have a few minutes, definitely check out his YouTube channel as well. I also really liked how the side quests tend to weave into each other. There are several times where I'll be doing one side quest and someone will mention a person I am looking for in another side quest, and they'll kind of help me with that quest. So it's kind of like there'll be several moments where I can kind of kill two birds with one stone. And one thing I really like about Kingdom Come 2 Deliverance is nothing really happens in a vacuum. The things you do actually matter in this world. For example, I was on a mission where I uncovered a prank that went very, very wrong, where someone ended up dying, actually. They ended up actually getting killed. And I eventually figured out what happened, and I turned in one of the guys who's involved in the incident. And later on in the game, I found him hanging from a random tree. The town actually found him guilty and executed him for his crime, which is a very disturbing thing to just kind of come across while exploring this game randomly. But again, things matter in this game. Your actions have consequences in this game. A choice that you make earlier in the game is going to affect your experience later in the game. People will treat you different based on your reputation. And I mentioned this earlier, but just as simply as how dirty you are, how nice your clothes are. People are going to treat you differently based on your reputation and how good you look, which is why I think this game is going to frustrate a lot of people at the beginning, because you literally start off with nothing. Henry and Hans, after narrowly escaping death, have to stop to get something to eat, but you literally have no money to pay the bill. So you have to do some manual labor for a bit to pay off your debt. And nobody believes you that Hans is a noble because you just look like shit. You literally get thrown in the stocks. So you start with nothing and you have to build your way up, which is always something that sequels to RPG struggle with, because how do you take the same character from a previous game that got built up to this badass and make that character interesting to play in the sequel? Because you essentially have to take away everything that you gained in the first game in the second game to make that sequel interesting to play. And Kingdom Come 2 Deliverance does a great job kind of breaking Henry down, so it's fun and rewarding to build him back up. Like I've said already, you're going to spend the first few hours after the lengthy intro section just kind of trying to stay alive. It feels like you're always putting out different fires. It feels like everything in this world is built up against you. You're hungry, but you don't have money for food. You're tired, but you don't have a place to sleep. You literally get a job as a blacksmith, which solves your sleeping issue, because he will actually literally give you a small room, kind of like a pseudo apartment that you can sleep in, and you have a chest to throw your things in. But he literally charges you for the materials you need to blacksmith. This game is very unforgiving in that sense. It's like you have to have money to make money. And honestly, it kind of feels like the first 2 hours of Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is a great metaphor for the American dream right now. You are literally busting your ass to make a living, but the system feels like it's set up to constantly kick you in the balls. This game is definitely an open world RPG in its truest sense. The one thing the game gives you at the beginning is freedom. You can steal to stay alive. You can lie to people to get your way, to convince them to do whatever you want. Or you could be a do-gooder that just works hard and tells the truth. Now, that do-gooder path does take a lot of time to get ahead. Like I said, it's pretty hard out there in this world to get ahead if you just do everything on the straight and narrow. Like I said earlier, with the blacksmith, it takes a lot of grinding to make enough money to survive in this world if you also have to pay the blacksmith for the materials. Yes, he will pay you for the stuff that you make, but a lot of the money that you make is going to go back to buying new materials from him. So it's kind of like take 2 steps forward, 1 step back sort of thing. But the game does give you a choice. You do get to choose your own path. And I think the most impressive thing about Kingdom Come 2 Deliverance and games like this is that it doesn't fall apart when you make a choice or fail a skill check or anything like that. It feels like the developers and writers have thought everything through, and the game just kind of rolls with the punches. No matter what happens, the game doesn't fall apart like a house of cards, which makes this game feel a lot less like just a collection of code and programming and much more like a living, breathing world. And like I said earlier, the stakes actually matter in this game. For example, there's a skill check early in this game where you can convince a horse trader to give you back Pebbles, your horse, for free. My speech stat wasn't very high at the time, so I actually failed that skill check. And I play a lot of these games, and so I kind of shrugged my shoulders and I was like, oh well, I'll just come back later and try again. Nope, that dialogue option is gone. That vendor made his decision. He did not believe me that Pebbles was mine, and so he decided not to give him back to me. And so if I wanted my horse back, I had to buy him if I wanted him back. And turns out I could have just stolen him and paid the black market horse dealer to acquire him, but I didn't know that at the time. So I literally had to work my ass off and get a ton of money to buy Pebbles back. And honestly, thinking back on it, I'm not sure I would have wanted to steal him anyways, because like I said earlier, your reputation means a lot in this game. People will treat you differently depending on your rep in that area. Your choices and your mistakes feel like they genuinely matter in Kingdom Come 2 Deliverance. It feels like, as much as I love the original Fable game, it's one of my favorite games of all time, this game feels like what I was promised that game was gonna be. It feels like Fable and games like it walked, so games like Kingdom Come Deliverance could run. The game also adapts the skill tree to your style of play. You aren't just getting skill points when you hit certain XP thresholds, and those points can be applied to whatever skill you want. You get XP based on the thing that you're doing the most. For example, if you're riding around on your horse a lot, you will level up your horsemanship stats. Those skill points can only be used to get perks related to your horse. Same thing with weapons. If you fight with an axe instead of a sword, like I did, just because I randomly found a badass axe in a shed, your heavy weapon stats are going to be high while your swordsmanship will be shit. Speaking of combat, it's been a minute since I played the original game, but I remember being pretty frustrated with the combat. I just couldn't get a feel for it. And Kingdom Come Deliverance 2's combat is still punishing and will take some getting used to, but it feels way more polished than I remember the first game's combat being. Especially after you learn the Master Strike from Tomcat. It's certainly not an easy button by any means, but it does level the playing field a bit. If you're watching this video and you're still struggling with the combat and you haven't already, I would suggest going to the Nomad's camp and learning the Master Strike from Tomcat. It will help you a lot, but combat isn't a cakewalk after the Master Strike. There was a side mission where I was helping a guy get his horse back that had been stolen from some bandits, and I eventually found the bandit camp. There was like 5 or 6 well-armed bandits in that camp, and I first just thought, okay, I'm gonna be a badass and I'm just gonna Rambo this shit and just run in there and fight them straight up, because I had the Master Strike, I had just learned it, and I was gonna mess these guys up. And it took a couple of tries of getting thoroughly fucked up that I decided, okay, I should probably just come back with a dagger and stealth kill a few of them to kind of thin out the crowd. So the Master Strike is not an easy button by any means, and they certainly did not dumb down the combat in the sequel. It's still difficult and will take time to get used to, but anybody watching this that's nervous about playing Kingdom Come 2 Deliverance because either you're like me and didn't like the combat for the first game, or just simply heard that it was hard, don't completely write off this game. It's still hard, but it's much improved from the original game. And even if you do get stuck, what's really great about this game is, because it's in this open world immersive RPG, is that you can kind of just fuck off and do something else, kind of explore and do something else for a while. This game is built for you to explore. It wants you to explore. There is fast travel. Once you discover a new town or central location, you can actually unlock the ability to fast travel to that location. But this game is one of the rare games where I definitely will fast travel, especially considering there's a day and night cycle in this game, and there are vendors that are only open during certain times during the day. So for the sake of time, I will still fast travel depending on what I'm doing. But it's one of those rare RPGs like Witcher 3 or Elden Ring where I didn't want to fast travel because there was so much to explore. And again, the game wants you to explore. And the map is jam-packed with cool stuff to discover, but also enough space in between that kind of allows you to soak it all in. You're not bumping up to the next thing every 30 seconds. It feels like they did find a good balance in between having enough stuff to do, having enough towns to discover, having enough interesting things to explore, but also just having these moments of just riding around on your horse and just exploring the environment and just kind of soaking it all in. It doesn't hurt that the environment is beautiful to look at. The wide shots of the sun setting while you're slowly riding pebbles to the next town was so relaxing. I did have some minor clipping issues. Some characters would occasionally like clip through doors and such. I especially noticed it when I was blacksmithing early on. The sword or whatever I was making would sometimes clip through the anvil. Now, to their credit, it does seem like Warhorse has fixed the blacksmith clipping issue, because I just went back to it the other day and I didn't have that anymore. I also did have one crash day one, but I haven't had anything since. And I will say that I have experienced both Kingdom Come Deliverance games day one, and this is obviously the superior game in that sense. Like, it's way more polished than the first game was day one. All right, wrapping up this first impressions video. I'm not gonna give this official star rating just because this is a first impressions video, and for someone who has played somewhere around 25 to 30 hours of this game, I'm not actually that far in the main quest, so I can't really feel comfortable giving it an official star rating. But I will say that if you have the time, I would suggest giving this game a while. Like, slow play this game. I think that's the best way to enjoy this game. It's definitely the way that I've been enjoying this game. So if you have the time, I definitely would suggest trying to give this game as much time as possible. It's a game that wants you to slow play it. It wants you to explore, and it's really fun to explore. Like I've said a few times already, it's not going to be everybody's cup of tea, but I've been really enjoying my time with this game. I can't wait to post this video so I can play it some more. And I know it may sound silly to say this in February about a game that I haven't officially beaten yet, but I would not be surprised if I talk about Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 again when it comes time for my top 5 favorite games of 2025 video. But of course, those are just my thoughts on Kingdom Come 2 Deliverance. I'd love to hear yours in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, which I assume since you made it this far, you did, smash that like button as the kids say. Consider subscribing. If you do subscribe, ding that bell. That way you're notified every time I post another video. I try to post weekly gaming related content. So if you like that type of content, which you obviously do if you watch this much of this video, definitely consider subscribing and dinging that bell. But until next video, take it easy. What's up, YouTube people? It's your boy Patty McNinja, and this is my boy Yoshi, aka Kitty Boy. And we were just talking, and we agree that since you made it this far in the video, you might as well subscribe. You wouldn't want to disappoint Kitty Boy, would you?